Paterson Price for Friday, December 20th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the Historic Wall Center. And the show, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets, so whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Matt Sakaris beside a scrambling for Christmas Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, playing through a broken hand today, hitting switches and conducting things. He claims he didn't punch his television last night after the Canucks game, but I don't know. His explanation was...
Yeah, I was just getting up
pretty
and...
murky. Yeah. The TV fell off the wall, crushed my hand.
The story changed a couple times.
You caught me.
Thank you for playing hurt today,
You know what? 12-time producer of the year, Trevor Martins, used to tell us when he threw the remote at the TV
that's right.
after a Flames loss. He just honesty is the best policy.
Yeah. What are you up to today, Trev? I'm headed to Best Buy for a new TV. Oh, why?
New remote often. He'd buy you new universal remotes.
Yeah, exactly. So this fellow over here will be calling the Spengler Cup for TSN. So this is his last show of 2024. And, you have 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas is a big lift. You need more hours in this day, huh?
Yeah, I need more days in this week.
Got you.
Yes.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you. I'll let you know how...
We have moved to the Charles Barkley.
What's that?
Christmas. Don't exchange gifts with adults. Just children. Adults don't need gifts.
Yeah.
Sitting down for dinner and football is good enough.
I thought that was the reference that you were just going to sit and eat all holiday season. That sounds like Charles Barkley
too.
Christmas.
That too. Got that right. Okay. Well, these Vancouver Canucks, and more on the game last night in a second. First, the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. What's more likely for the Canucks, a Miller or Pettersson trade? Tocchet gets fired, although somebody mentioned to me, if this gets too bad, will Rick just say, you know what, forget about it. I'll go back to TNT. I'll sit in a chair. I'll talk hockey there.
He doesn't look like he's having fun right now.
Doesn't. He really doesn't. Or you can vote for peace on Earth. And we mean their Earth, although neither seems attainable right now. Do so at the Sakaris and Price X and YouTube channels. I voted peace on Earth, but a trade would not surprise me. You?
I voted peace on Earth as well. Winning a trade is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Having to consummate, find the right suitor, find the right pieces that match. It is a lot to just say, trade Miller, trade Petey. That easier said than done. The coach, hey, there's the adage, you can't fire players, but you can fire a coach. And who'd have thought that would be uttered? And I don't think it's likely, but ultimately, the longer these shenanigans go on, they're not going to fire themselves, managers. One guy that could help broker peace is the coach. And if the piece is not brokered, do they ultimately see that as a critical flaw? Or they look at the offense of this team right now and the fact that it cannot score to save its life, and it's not because of a low shooting percentage. Matt, they can't generate chances. They can't generate shots. So is that systems? Is that the star players' corner of the dressing room is so toxic that they just cannot perform? Who knows? But ultimately, as we know in professional sports, often it just lands on the lap of the head coach. So I'm not surprised by any of the 3 options, but ultimately, the easiest thing for the Vancouver Canucks organization to do right now is to try to consummate peace on Earth. That is the easiest thing for them to do. Agreed. And Matt, I question whether enough has been done. It is a day off today officially for the team.
Mm-hmm. Some travel issues last night.
But they're going to get into the town, if they're not in town already, early enough. Matt, if it's a day off for Pettersson and Miller, they're doing this wrong. Because those two guys should be at Rogers Arena in the front offices, talking with management and figuring this out. Mm-hmm. The longer this is put on Rick Tocchet's plate, for him to separate them on power plays in game, rotating them on and off, because heaven forbid they couldn't have one single power play in which they're on there together. Like, come on. Yeah. You're affecting the play now.
Or one of them miss a power play shift, like that it's gotten to egos and feelings.
And then it's gotten to hockey. Like, it's affecting the hockey.
Well, you're messing with everybody else's money right now, is what you're doing.
So
let's get one thing clear. They're not firing Tocchet. I cannot for the life of me see this management group firing Tocchet this season. And frankly, I can't see them firing him in the offseason either.
Oh, he doesn't have a contract, so they have to sign him. Like, that's a new level.
I think that's a formality. I could see a trade of either party. And I know some people, we've talked about a Pettersson trade.
First of all, why are you so at it? And I'm not calling for Rick Tocchet's head, but it is a time-honored tradition firing coaches. We've seen it already. Why is Rick Tocchet?
He's the reigning Jack Adams Award winner.
Which means nothing in the NHL as we've come.
Well, I think it means something the year after. 2 years on, maybe not. There was no other candidate when they fired Bruce Boudreau. They had locked in on Tocchet. I think Alvin loves him. I think Rutherford loves him. I think the owner loves him.
But the proof is ultimately in the pudding.
Well, and the proof was a 109-point season last year. That counts too. So, no, I unless Rick has had enough, I do not see any world where Rick Tocchet is not coaching this team for the balance of this season. And quite frankly, I think that he doesn't have a contract. It's just a formality. I think he is the type of coach they want. We've talked about a Pettersson trade and what that could look like because, of course, he doesn't have trade protection, at least not till July. And I've also argued that there is a world where you win an Elias Pettersson trade. We've cited the examples, Matt Duchene, Erik Karlsson, two really good players who were moved out by their teams who did better. I know Miller's trade protection is daunting. And you look at it and go, oh, okay. He'd had to agree to any trade. Just back of a napkin here, Blake. So he's an Eastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania guy, right? Pittsburgh, Columbus. To be around family. I know Columbus isn't, Anyways.
That's the most obvious.
Yeah. Did you not see the Flyers wanting JT Miller?
Yeah.
Did you not see JT wanting to play in a good hockey market like Philly?
I think the Buffalo Sabres and the New York Rangers are an obvious market for him too.
Islanders, Red Wings too.
He'd
say no.
He would fit into that style of organization.
I'm just sketching it out with like 7 teams, kind of in and around his neck of the woods. So, look, you're not there yet, but boy, to be a fly on a wall of Alvin and Rutherford's daily chat here, huh? With what's going on here.
But again,
do they have to start considering this? Do they have to start getting ducks in order? Do you circle back with Carolina and say, okay, Carolina, you made a call on Pettersson last year. Where are you at there?
But
could we talk about something Pettersson and Aho?
In the words of Jeff Paterson, do something. And there's no proof that they haven't done something, but there's certainly some signs that they haven't done anything. Like the fact that they are going to the extremes that they are on the ice in separating it leads you to believe that's what they're thinking is the solution here.
Yep.
Like if I had a big chat with them, if I had the big what Lawrence Gilman suggested earlier this week on the show, if that had already occurred, you know what the first thing I would do if I was Rick Tocchet? I'd put them on the ice together. I'd be like,
We're going to talk about reuniting Lotto Line here.
like we if we just
We're going to talk about Lotto Line here.
like if we just had the come to Jesus event, everybody's at the boardroom table, we're hashing this out. The next day, I'm putting them on the ice together and saying, "Okay, we chatted about this. Show me." Mm-hmm. The fact that they haven't done that leads me to believe they haven't done much about it behind the scenes. Figure it out.
I do actually wonder, and this is a rarity for me, but I do actually wonder whether Chairman Francesco Aquilini could play a role here in peacemaking. And he's, of course, he cozies up to players. And I know when Kessler asked for his trade, and you'll remember the Canucks had a deal that trade deadline to send him to Anaheim, a deal which they would later reconstitute under a different management group. But Francesco nixed the trade and said, "I'll talk to Ryan." Well, here you go, Mr. Chairman. Here's a situation that is crying out for leadership and, of course, doesn't get any bigger than yours with Canucks Sports Entertainment. Do you bring them to Casa Aquilini? Sit down and go, "Okay, guys, what's happening here? Because we need you both playing your best. We need you collaborating if we're going to get to where we want to get this spring."
And Mr. Aquilini has, God, I don't call him that much, has gone into action.
Not many do, though. He likes Francesco.
At critical moments when Roberto Luongo needed a contract. I mean, nothing worse than air travel. He got on a plane, got down there, presented it himself.
That's right. Exactly.
Because the situation
was so sensitive.
Necessitated big action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a bad shot.
Lease month at Surrey Mitsubishi. Leasing a car, better option, lower monthly payment, flexibility to drive a new vehicle every few years. You got the convenience of staying under warranty, limited minimal maintenance costs, plus you avoid the long-term commitment of ownership, the depreciation hit. This month at Surrey Mitsubishi, the 2024 Outlander PHEV. You get it for $182 a week. Need a gas option? You got the Outlander Gas 2024 for $105 a week. Clips Cross $100 a week, and the RVR only $87 a week. Plus skid away with up to $1,000 winter tire credit and no charge to your maintenance package. And we've been telling you about that $5,000 government rebate on the Outlander PHEV while it lasts.
Thomas points out in the chat, don't think JT would want to go to the Isles with Bo.
Oh, right. Of course.
More
is that
clashes.
But so does that in and of itself not tell you who the problem is?
I know people love JT, and I'm getting texts from friends and colleagues. Everybody loves, at first blush, JT's vim and vigor.
Yeah. Well, because that's the problem with keeping JT. So if the next guy comes through and JT is hard on him and it affects the...
Hey, no one wants a flimsy piece of paper, which is, I don't think, a fair critique of Elias Pettersson. But we do see colorful language used about his demeanor. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, it is burnt bridges.
Yep. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey, or online at surreymitsubishi.ca. And Merry Christmas to everyone there at the dealership. Happy holidays. Top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, and Foolish Winery. A 3-1 loss to Vegas. 1 of 4 points on this quickie back-to-back road trip. And actually, we've talked about Tocchet's demeanor. We've talked about the brevity of Tocchet's post-game press conferences all week.
75 seconds.
Yeah, it was another quick one yesterday, so let's take a listen, come back, and discuss.
Oh, I thought, it's a good hockey team. I thought we played well. Didn't give much. They didn't give us much. They capitalized, and we got the empty net goal.
You guys got the start you wanted tonight, the opening
20? Yeah, we had a good start. Really liked our first period. They're a good team. They did a little press. Obviously the second goal we lose our man, and that's it. We tried to make a few presses, but yeah, we couldn't get that equalizer.
You guys do get a power play in the third. A little disappointed you couldn't set up and get some quality looks on that one.
Yeah, you're hoping for somebody to get something going there. And I think they're taking Quinn away a lot, so he's trying to dish it to some other guys. But yeah, Petey had the one-timer, missed the net. I don't think we had much after that.
You take positives from this game, or?
Yeah, I thought a lot of good efforts from a lot of guys. I really do. Like I said, 1-0 game. Obviously unfortunate that goal, and then we just couldn't get that second goal. And then, a few chances there. Heinen on that shorthanded with Sherwood. A couple of chances here and there. Yeah, but we didn't give him much. You got to take the positive out of that.
We had the moral victories poll question not too long ago, a week and a half ago, which people were adamant, no, stop it with moral victories. Both of these road games, the head coach said that he thought they could take something, learn things out of the losses, and
look, I don't want to pin the tail on Murph because he's like the only Vancouver reporter there. And we know this management group has already thrown those guys off the plane. They're not on the charter anymore. But boy, I would have loved a question about why are they split on the power, like this power play arrangement. And I'd also would have loved a question on the hell happened with pulling the goaltender. Yeah. And I mean,
115, he's still in there.
So disorganized. Well, and he even doubled clutches before he heads to the bench.
To which JT Miller has palms in the air going, what gives?
Exactly. I mean, good on him for resisting the urge to smash his stick on the back of the net. Yeah. And then when you do pull the goaltender, then the breakout is just, it's abysmal. It's an instant turnover. It's in the back of your net. Game over. And frankly, the goaltending pull is on coaching. Like we said, Tocchet last year, minus touch. Did just about everything right. You could quibble with some things in the playoff series, but for 82, man, that was as good a coaching job as I've seen in any sport 20, 25 years in this business. This year, doesn't hit all the right buttons.
First of all, with regards to Murph, I mean, generally, Rick talk in the past, you ask him those same questions as Murph did. Talking knows how to play ball. He gives you 30 seconds per answer, easy. Not happening right now. Secondly, when it comes to the power play question,
we'll get that question tomorrow morning. We probably won't get the goaltender poll question simply because it's been there. It's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
But be sure you're going to get the question about splitting the two of them on the power.
And there is a way, and I have full confidence in the media corps here in Vancouver. Media doesn't go into these sessions angrily. They're not fired up like a fan is. But I hope there are some purposeful and pointed questions. Again, not rude, but valid, pointed questions about what's happening here.
Like you were so far against the NHL current in not having your two best offensive forwards on the same power play unit. And we talked about they're taking Quinn away, all the more reason to have different threats on the ice.
Yeah.
So, it's...
And you know what? I'm actually seeing Pettersson way more eager to use the one-timer lately.
Mm-hmm.
Like he seems a little bit more shooty. I would go right back to old school. Each guy at the top of the circle.
I like this tweet from Trent Leith, though, of Canucks Army. Miller needs to stop worrying about others and play. He doesn't get to decide when to pull the goalie. It's like directing traffic on the penalty kill, where, frankly, I'm not sure they should use him anyways. So, when you see that sort of on-ice behavior, you say to yourself, boy, what's going on in the room?
Yeah, just do your job.
Don't micromanage everybody else.
Yeah.
You're not the coach. And the rotation on power play one.
Oh. Because, Quinn is the captain. Do you see Quinn do that?
No.
Do you see Quinn looking at it and going palms up to the coach? What are you doing?
Yeah. And of course, we don't know what has or hasn't happened behind the scenes, but I've been thinking about this more and more. I would love to hear that Quinn Hughes sits them both down and just tears a fucking strip off both of them.
Yeah.
I would love to hear that. I would love for Quinn to say, sit down and say, guys, we only play so many years. We only got so many chances to win a cup. We got a pretty fucking good team here. Let's not sewer it because of egos and feelings and a lack of professional collaboration on both your parts. You owe it to every other guy in this room, not to mention the coaching staff and the full organization,
As we are seeing,
to squash it and move forward.
as we're seeing in today's National Hockey League, your prime years are younger and younger and younger. Like, this is A1 career real estate for Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson.
Damn straight. And frankly, JT too.
Well, they're
because,
bonus years. Like, he's living
Exactly.
in a rarefied air to be as effective as he is at the age of 31, 32.
His best years have been recently.
Yeah. Which means there probably is a cliff coming in the not too distant future where he doesn't have the efficacy that he has right now. So, you can't waste a year.
Yeah. Bluger gets the goal. The bottom six continues to outperform the top six. Sherwood, notwithstanding, he got an assist. I'm calling him top six now, Kiefer Sherwood, because that's what he is, as a goal scorer on the team.
Hey, the role players. The adage, your best players have to be your best player. I know everybody hates hockey cliches. This is Exhibit A as to why that cliche exists, because the role players are doing very nice jobs right now, right down to the defense guys. Like Juleson.
Team defense without Hronik has actually been pretty good.
The defense
goaltending's been outstanding.
Yeah. Everybody else is kind of doing their job right now.
Yes.
The star players,
Yes.
the star forwards.
Yeah.
No. And look what happens.
Spotzilla's in the super chat. And thank you, Spotzilly. Sorry. Spat or Spot? Spat. Spatzilly. My apologies. It's in the super chat. And partial proceeds for our super chats this year on YouTube will be donated to the BC Mental Health Foundation. So feel free to jump in the super chat here, make a pledge. It's the Christmas season, time for giving. Between Sakaris and Price, which one of you is Petey and which one is JT? Well, he's got a very, very long.
Well, I don't want to be the flimsy piece of paper, though, either.
Frankly, as I've aged, I've become less of a Popovsky.
Yeah, yep.
When we first started the show, I was kind of a Popovsky.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah.
You mature.
You
Things
change.
roll off your back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just want to fight every inbox battle? No, not anymore. Every Twitter battle? No, not worth it.
We've both got.
Don't want to run at that temperature all the time.
You had more JT in you than I did, certainly, but we both had a little.
I think I infected you with a little more JT. And you've probably infected me with a little more patience.
Yeah.
Blake has the patience of a saint. No, it really it's
not
very
a
true.
saint, but
No, honestly, it takes a whole lot to get Blake angry, impatient, emotional.
4 children.
Four
A lot of
children,
noise.
exactly. That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that, Spatzilly. But here's the thing: while we have had some pretty good arguments, we have always ascribed to this thing. Red light, and when it's off, that's got to be the end of it. We've had several blowouts on air, and as soon as the thing is turned off, that's it. It's over. You move on.
I had this on Twitter from somebody, Mike the driver. You mean some coworkers aren't buddy-buddy in the workplace? Shocking. I've never seen or experienced that in my life. Sarcasm. Don't seem to hate each other here. It's a picture of the two of them hugging after a big goal. Yeah. That was in ancient history, I believe, too.
Folks, let's not pretend there's not an issue. Bruce Boudreau went on Toronto radio yesterday and said there's an issue. The quote, the easy answer would be, yes, it is a problem. I knew they had a little bit of a problem between them before I got there, but I thought that was straightened out. He goes on, it shouldn't be happening. I'm one of those guys that wants to dig my head in the sand right now and not know if they hate each other. I like both the guys a lot, and I don't want to see one's being a real butthead to the other. Bruce's words.
But the point is, even from Mike the driver here, coworkers do have problems in the workplace. And you'd hope to think that they, especially with huge consequences, like a lot of our jobs don't have seasons that you build up to, and it's either a failure or a passing grade, right? Like your job, it's just your job. Every day, like there's quarters, but you're not really building towards something per se. This is a critical year in all of their careers. Work it out.
And we're seeing more and more fans now not decamp, but uncamp.
Yeah. It started decamped for sure.
And now it's about, I'm for neither of them.
Well, people also don't like change, right? People don't like changing their team. They want to believe that everything's going to be hunky-dory. Don't trade anybody. We love them. And so the best way, everybody can win. That fan can win. The Canucks can win too. Peace on earth. Work it out. Figure it out. And we know they can work together. We've got empirical evidence that shows they can work together.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, I think Allvin has to do here, and I know the roster freezes on until next Saturday, but I think Allvin needs to be in very close contact with Chris Drury in New York and with Kevin Adams in Buffalo, because those are two melodramas that are also playing out here in the league.
Yeah.
One of them needs a fix immediately because they intend on contending. One of them needs a fix because it's probably going to cost the manager his job. So those are two teams prime for a fleecing right now. We know the Rangers have had huge interest in JT Miller in the past. Buffalo, to be able to get a player like a Miller or a Pettersson makes a lot of things easier in their world. They got the Leafs tonight at home. And if you're not familiar, it's not a long drive from Toronto to Buffalo. Typically, Leafs fans take over that building.
Yeah.
Lindy Ruff today said, well, we've got to have a good start to keep the fans out of it. It's a home game for the Buffalo Sabres.
Truth of the matter is, I'd much rather shop, and it's hard to believe because the Rangers are a better team, but based on birth dates, I would much rather shop down the aisle of the Sabres than the Rangers.
Because you like Tage Thompson.
Tage Thompson would be a nice target.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing, so talk about Tocchet and the coaching staff, not their Mona Lisa. Although some of it really is not their fault because of the construction of the team, but you got Noah Juleson out there down a goal with 90 seconds to play. You got an offensive zone faceoff, and here come Derek Forbort and Vincent Desharnais. Again, Quinn Hughes can only play every second shift.
Does he seem omnipresent, though? Holy
oh, my God.
cow.
Oh, he's everywhere.
Blocks a shot, hobbled, looks like he's going to have to cut off the leg. Back out there in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, honestly.
What are Yellow Dog and Neighborhood up to? Let's shout some love there.
Hey, during this hospitality month, you want to know that some beers are on sale a little bit. Yellow Dog's doing you a solid. The High Five Hazy IPA. This is their proud crown jewel, Hazy IPA. The tall can, 4-packs, on special for the month of December. Merry, merry, happy, happy. Look for on sale at private and government liquor stores.
Yeah, that's a big beer. That's good holiday drinking right there. Our old friend Mr. Bruff made a pretty good point, I thought, on Twitter or on X yesterday. Canucks are in a real pickle here. Let's say one guy needs to be traded. Once he's traded, how's it going to be for the other guy who's still here? Not sure if you've noticed, but each side has a fairly vocal fan base. It's true. Now,
and even in the room.
that's noise. Well,
you got that guy traded?
Fan noise is fan noise. What matters more is the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing. JT has a little merry band of followers in there, for sure. There's a big USA presence in there, led by JT.
Eventually, the temperature might just come down and it'll all be better. But ultimately, there's still going to be you got that guy traded, regardless of who it is.
So, and I saw fans talking about this last night, and the first thing we should say about reuniting Lotto Line is if they can't even play together on the power play, what are the chances they can play at even strength?
There was like an accidental Lotto Line appearance last night.
Yeah, but
for 30 seconds.
The theory being that you force them to collaborate by putting them on the same line. Now, here again, who's taking the draw, who's playing center, egos, feelings. But do you see any? I once heard of a conference commissioner in college athletics, and in the summer retreat, which was, golf course and dinner sort of thing, he would take the coaches that hated each other the most and he'd put them in golf foursomes and basically say, you've got 4.5 hours here on the golf course where, eventually you just stop being mad at the other guy, right? Do you see anything constructive that could come out of reuniting Lotto Line right now?
In concert with the meeting. Again, like I would do that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Force the issue, but it can't be a standalone. It can't be like no one's talking to anybody and all of a sudden you're playing together. Like, have the meeting, hash it out, and then yes, here you go. Certainly on the power play, I'm a little less inclined on Lotto Line because I think once the vibes calm down, I still think Miller, Besser as a duo and DeBrusk, Pettersson as a duo is probably where you want it to land. Rather than stacking your two centers together. But whatever. They have to play together in one of those two milieus eventually. So I would certainly go down that road. But it can't be on as a standalone action.
Sorry, I was on my wrong page of notes there.
What could you possibly say? Yeah.
I had some notes earlier in the week about, if you had to trade JT, what are the potential destinations? I've mentioned this several times this week because I look on social media and I see fans saying we could never win a trade for Miller or Pettersson. Now, I understand a little more with Miller because he's got the no trade and can designate and could make life difficult for the Canucks if he so chose. Pettersson doesn't. The Ottawa Senators are in town tomorrow with Travis Green. They've won 5 in a row. They're the hottest team in the NHL. They have been on either ends of trading a star player, and the team that traded the star player out won the deal. They themselves, when they moved Erik Karlsson and got Tim Stützle, draft pick that turned into Tim Stützle, Josh Norris, Chris Tierney, and Dylan DeMello. That was a really good trade.
It adjusts your clock. It adjusts your window.
It really. Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sure. Then the Colorado Avalanche, and the Senators were on the losing end of this one. Well, it was messy though. Kyle Turris in Nashville was involved, but remember Joe Sakic waited like a year and a half to trade Matt Duchene. And we're all sitting there going, oh my God, diminishing asset, doesn't want to do it. Like, what is Joe waiting for? Is he scared to make a trade? Well, after he wound up making the trade, he had Bowen Byram, he had Samuel Girard, 2 young, top 4 defense. I know there were some injury issues there with both of them. They, in fact, still have Kamenev on their reserve list. He's over in Russia. But it wound up being a good trade for the Avalanche. You are not conceding defeat if you have to trade one of these players. And the Canucks pro scouting has been such a strength under Rutherford and Alvin. I think they could win a trade with one of these guys. Odds may be stacked against them, but particularly in the Buffalo example, particularly in the Rangers example, those would have to be sooner rather than later, one would think.
It's just an at-bat you don't have to take, right? Like
I understand that,
in
Blake.
acquiring these players, you've already beaten the odds.
But what I'm saying is, management may very well be sitting there as we speak, going, we cannot afford to sacrifice this season watching those two squabble and not be able to cooperate and collaborate. That this is a urgent situation that requires fixing now. Some may say give it the year. Okay, we'll see. But typically, like as you say, it's now affecting hockey operations. It's affecting strategy and tactics.
Who would have thought?
Some would say you've waited too long already.
Given what you knew about the players and the fact that, again, they have worked together in the past. There's been longevity. There's a track record.
Yeah, but you also knew there was static. There was tension in the past. Like your job as a manager or a coach is to fix it before the 18,000 in the arena and the tens of thousands watching at home pick up on it.
I do want to be clear, too.
That day is coming past.
Based on some information that we've both been privy to. Like, I think there's a risk here in the media narrative in the media reporting, I should say. It makes it sound false. In the media reporting, that JT Miller is the bad guy here. And I don't think that's as black and white as it may appear to some. Like, both players, by all accounts, wear some of this. So I don't think that the takeaway from what I've seen and heard is that JT Miller is the unabashed evil villain here. And that if PD's traded, Miller's certainly the bad guy. It's his fault. Like, from what we kind of know, there's
blame to go around.
There's some blame to go around here.
Yep.
Not just antics that are obvious to people with temper tantrums and such.
Like, I don't think Elias is very coachable, if he's coachable at all. I think he just wants to be left alone. I think 3 coaches now have had trouble getting through to Elias. And in JT's case, he obviously runs too hot, too often, to the detriment
But I don't know that
of harmony in the room.
I don't know that Pettersson's communication is necessarily any better.
No, I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure
in a different way, but I don't think it's any better.
Yep. No, I was told that when Rutherford got here, he realized he had to make an assessment. He had his doubts, and he has to make an assessment on, can you win a Stanley Cup with Elias Pettersson being a frontline player? And I also think that Elias has been maddening for Tocchet. Remember Boudreaux at one point was playing and said, he likes to play with his friends. Like, what the fuck are we talking? Is it minor hockey? Honestly. Shout out and a big thank you to longtime audience member Lydia in Burnaby. She stopped by earlier today. She always stops by around Christmas and delivers gifts. She's a thrift shopper. She found this beautiful Vancouver Canucks book for me, and you got one as well. So thank you, Lydia in Burnaby. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away. Your steps from the arena and the stadium there. They have the awesome arcade that encircles the bar. Fantastic food as well. We'll be there for some Canucks Army viewing parties. In fact, Quadrelli is usually quite organized. I have not yet heard what date in January we're going there for a Canucks Army viewing party. Mike, are you familiar with what date we are going there in January for the next Canucks Army viewing party?
I have no more info.
Wow. Quadrelli, this is a little late. Normally get a lot of notice with Quadrelli. He is most organized.
That sounded a little JT-like.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Matt.
Don't
with
make me
palms
go
in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at the
David,
bench. Looking at the bench.
I need to know. Calendar's filling up. Weekly drink specials. Greta, the place to be. 50 West Cordova. Greta Bar. Let the games begin. The Jeffs we know today. Paterson, then Marek.
Both J Jeffs too. Not one of them has the
No,
decency
exactly.
to split and go G Jeff.
Yeah.
Both J Jeffs.
Yeah.
TGIJ. It's Jeff Day on Sick Harrison Price.
Yeah, well, with Marek, we talk about all this, and I think he gets to it, and that is the decision you're coming down to, who's the better playoff performer. And I think this management group and coaching staff would vote JT there.
Unabashedly.
And
unabashedly,
on what we
but-
saw last spring, JT. Now, Leah says he was hurt. Okay.
On that metric, Matt, I think everybody's in agreement. But
Okay,
age
let
is
me
a
ask
thing.
you this.
Age
Let
is
me
a thing.
for sure. Let me ask you this: if Elias has another poor playoffs, he's traded before that protection kicks in. Fair?
if it's a really stark playoff, yeah, I can see it.
I think for sure.
Yeah.
I think if this team gets to the playoffs with Elias and Miller there, and Elias has another disappearing act, I think he's absolutely being moved before that trade protection kicks in July. Because I think Rutherford, Alvin, and Tocchet will sit there and go, can't win with them.
But the problem is every other NHL GM saw it too.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right?
But he would not be the first young player to struggle in his first 2 playoffs.
For sure.
Like, I was in Ottawa when young player Marian Hossa struggled mightily in his first few playoffs. And many in the local media there thought, not sure you can win with this guy. And what did he turn into? He turned into one of the best two-way forwards of his era, and a guy who did have playoff success in the end.
No, you're right. There's history is literally.
I know he was on the wrong side those back-to-back years with Detroit and Pittsburgh in the Cup final, but Elias would not be the first one to struggle as a young player in his first couple of years. And look, 31 other teams would want Elias Pettersson. Let's make no bones about it. He is that level of talent. He is a 200-foot centerman, a playmaker and a finisher. It would absolutely be a scenario where you have other teams looking around going, yeah, we'd like to work with him.
JT Miller's got 56 playoff points in 91 playoff games. As a Vancouver Canuck, he's 30-30. So that tells you he was 26 points in 61 games before that.
Playing down lineup in Tampa, and of course a very young player in New York who never got Alain Vigneault's full confidence. And what's Elias? Do you have that in front of you?
To this
Because Elias, actually, the bubble, as I recall, Elias was pretty darn good. Pretty darn good.
Yeah, he was above a point per game in the bubble.
Yeah, he was.
18 points in 17 games.
Right. So you know, the playoff lack of success would not be as you could still mark it.
Yeah.
On total postseason performance. Some managers, I'm sure, were looking to go, bubble, what doesn't count? Okay, fine. Bubble doesn't count. He's still a great player. Let's get to our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. Pius Suter did not score for me yesterday. Did you win yours?
I did not.
Oh, boy. We are in a bit of a spell here. Where are you going?
I'm going the dreaded bet. Doing a little reading. Seahawks and Vikings. Geno banged up. They're going to be playing the ball along the ground a lot. Is it going to be a grinded out game? I'm taking the under 42.5 points, Seahawks and Vikings.
Is there going to be some weather down there?
I mean, it's not going to be.
I thought there's
snowy,
a lot of rain,
but could be wet too.
Yeah, coming here.
So take the under.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's going to be some rain Sunday.
Now the Seahawks are dogs anyway. They're plus 130 on the money.
Well, yeah. I mean, Minnesota, like, what an incredible job he's done coaching this. Because they were going to go forward with their first-round draft pick, J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. Sam Darnold was there to be the backup. I shouldn't say that. They were talking about, you know, the more longer extended plan with McCarthy. But he got hurt, and then suddenly it was Sam Darnold. It's your job. And, wow, he's done amazingly well. It is the first ever 12-team college football playoff gets going this weekend. The Notre Dame-Indiana game is tonight. It looks like it's going to be a snow globe game down there. You can bet your bottom dollar the announcers will be talking about the Canadian quarterback, Curtis Rourke, for
playing
Indiana.
in the snow.
He's accustomed to this. He's from Canada. They play football in igloos. Tomorrow, you have a very strange situation at The Ohio State University, who have lost 4 consecutive games to Michigan. A big deal. A big part of their fan base wants their coach fired. So they are trying to get over the trauma of losing to Michigan again. And they have 2 injuries on the offensive line of guys who are going to be NFL players. That plays right into Tennessee's strength with their defensive line. So I'm going to take the points in the Volunteers. Tennessee +7 tomorrow night at the Horseshoe in Columbus. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Jeff Paterson coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
It's Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center RinkWide Vancouver's Jeff Paterson joins us, our Canucks reporter. And Jeff, it sounds like the coach is out of answers, man. It sounds like the coach is frustrated. And I'm wondering whether the coach is losing the room at all. What thinks you on Mr. Tocchet?
Yeah, look, it's a dangerous way to make a living when you play 20 minutes of hockey, as they did against the Vegas Golden Knights. And the first 20 was terrific. I mean, more of that, please. But it is a 60-minute game, and this quest all season for consistency and start-to-finish performances, at some point, I think that does come back on the coach. The players are the guys that are out there. But the coach is the one that draws up the game plan. He's the one that pushes the buttons and controls the levers. And for a guy that had all the answers a year ago, it's pretty evident now that, yes, he is running short. I don't know if he's run out of answers, but the drama that's going on around this hockey club, and he's playing into it by splitting his two stars in the power play, and that's not working either. Third period power play in Utah on Wednesday that could have extended a lead and probably put that game away. A third period power play in Vegas on Thursday that could have got them back on even terms and perhaps helped them win that hockey game. And they come up firing blanks. And again, some of that's on the coach. He can message send all he wants, but is he doing it to spite his own good? And it sort of has that feeling that, you know, for a game, if you want to send messages to players and by extension to the rest of the team, sure, go for it. On a one-off. But this is a few games now. It's not working, and by extension, they're not winning hockey games. And so, yeah, I mean, he's culpable in all of this. It's not just the players. There's plenty to go around right now.
They're not even denying it, obviously, with the power play stuff, because if you tried to pass it off as just tweaks to the power play to get the power play going, you would have tried somebody else. But the fact that they are now in-game alternating power play opportunities, I mean, it feels like the team is putting this in lights that this is real. We acknowledge it. It is happening.
Yeah, and like, is this just their four best scorers going quiet at the same time? Like, if it was, you could live with that, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's a lot deeper than that. But at the surface, their four best scorers, and I'm including Connor Garland in that group, they've all gone ridiculously quiet and don't look dangerous. And I think that's the way bigger issue here. You always hear players say, hey, I'm getting chances. Eventually they'll go. Find me the chances right now. Like, JT Miller has 4 shots on goal in his 5 games since his return. He looks nothing like the player that's been here and dominated hockey games for the last couple of years. So he stepped away. He's back in body, but he's not back in the way that we know JT Miller. Elias Pettersson's gone awfully quiet again, as he did off the hop this season. Brock Boeser had the nice start, and we hoped that the head injury wasn't going to set him back. But whether it's that, whether it was the absence of JT Miller, it's just gone way too quiet around Brock Boeser now. And Connor Garland, who hustles, you don't knock the effort and the energy level, but earlier in the season, all of that led to productivity, and that's dried up now. So 3 goals out on the road in 2 games, 7 goals in their last 4, and of those 7, all coming from guys that we would categorize as depth scorers. Yeah, Kiefer Sherwood is among their goal-scoring leaders, but I still think we put him in the depth category there. Again, how do you win? How do you win in the National Hockey League if your star players are no-shows night after night after night? You don't, ultimately, and they have 1 win in their last 4 games.
Okay, the big question. If it comes down to one or the other, who do you think they'd keep? Who would you keep?
Oh, I mean, something tells me that Rick Tocchet would prefer the feisty, fiery guy that can raise his game. And we know that he's butted heads with Elias Pettersson and has called him out publicly, has talked around him. Look, Rick Tocchet played the game a certain way. I think he still holds those ideals as a coach, even if the game itself has evolved. But I get the sense that management made the massive commitment, management and ownership, to the younger player that you would suggest would have more upside. But we also saw the struggles down the stretch and into the playoffs last year. And so I'm not privy to the conversations behind the scenes, obviously. I don't know which way they would lean. I I would think that it would be a prudent play to keep the younger guy and hope that he can get back to star level. But again, like, they are with him on a daily basis, and maybe they've already made up their mind here. I don't know, but it just doesn't feel like this can persist, and that you want to just scream, like, just grow up, all of you, and be adults. But if it was that easy, I think they would have been to that point or got to that point. And so who knows where it plays out from here. It just feels, though, now, guys, like a significant trade is coming, whether it's underperforming star players, whether it's a winger who's on an expiring contract and has gone way too quiet, whether it's a management group that has a track record of being proactive and aggressive, and a team that just feels like it is the definition of dysfunction right now. Like, something's got to give here. And I know we're into the roster freeze, but I kind of get the sense that this management group's going to sit around and stew over the Christmas holidays, that it didn't beat the deadline, and that other teams were able to pull off trades and they weren't part of that activity. And so look out on the other side, because it kind of feels like they may have to make up for some lost time, at least in their mind.
Well, and you're right, because if you miss that deadline, and now if they lose these games during the freeze, Jeff, they look that much more desperate on the other side, don't they?
Well, there's that, but there's also, and look, I was prepared to give them plenty of latitude for the first, 25, 30 games. They were missing a lot of pieces, significant pieces, whether through injury or, things that we just haven't seen, whether it's Dakota Joshua on his cancer issue, JT Miller stepping away. This is their forward group. There is nobody that's riding in on a white horse now. Yes, Filip Hronek's out, and getting the puck to the forwards from the defense, that certainly helps. But this is their forward group, as healthy as it can be, at least physically. But right now, it's not good enough. It's nowhere close to good enough. And that's why, again, this is just me talking, but an educated guess is that this management group's not going to stick around and allow this to fester a whole lot longer. That they like to tinker, they like to shake things up, whether it is trying to improve the hockey club or send a message, or maybe both. I would expect that you are going to see a roster move, a significant roster move on the other side of this holiday freeze.
Is that Bowen Byram? Do you think Bowen Byram is a tonic here for the defense?
He'd help. Is he the magic bullet? I don't know. A guy that's had head injuries, that is a little bit of a red flag to me, but hopefully that those are behind him. Clearly Buffalo, as many issues as the Canucks have right now, complete tire fire in Buffalo, and I have to think that at some point they're just going to hit the panic button and start to make some moves there. So, you can connect the dots, and it makes sense on a lot of levels. And I'm never Bowen Byram played here in Vancouver and is a BC guy. Great. That's gravy in all of this. I think you're just looking at the hockey player himself. And, I remember watching him in junior, and he was dominant. I don't know that he's that player at the NHL level, but I think he's still a pretty good hockey player. And yes, we've all seen the weakness of this defense corps. Guys, 90 seconds to go, down by a goal last night, and through no fault of his own, Noah Juulsen is on the ice as the Canucks are trying to push for the equalizer. Quinn can't play every minute of every game, and so in those moments when Quinn Hughes needs a breather, the second pair is out, and now you've got Noah Juulsen, because Derek Forbort and Vincent Desharnais certainly aren't options late in the hockey game. So just as an example, if you had Bowen Byram on your roster, yeah, there's a situation. You're not getting him for late in games. You want to believe that he's going to help you have leads rather than trail and have to play catch up. But that just struck me last night that, again, that's not on Noah Juulsen. That's on the roster composition of this group right now, that it gets so thin in such a hurry that it was apparent. And you saw the confusion too. And I think that was part of it, that Carson Soucy and Noah Juulsen aren't used to being out there in the goaltender pulled, or at least trying to get the goaltender off the ice. And it was just chaos, and ultimately wound up in the back of their net.
Are you at all worried about what this is doing to Quinn Hughes? Quinn Hughes had bigger plans this season than what's happening right now.
Yeah, and he's been able to keep his game at a high level.
Oh, it's just crazy.
Right now, he does seem like the only sort of sure bet to show up and perform at a level that's going to lead to some offense. And, the goal that they got in Vegas last night, one of those rare occasions where he's on the ice and he doesn't figure in the scoring. But but he was out there and he's instrumental. He had the puck at the point and got it down low again, and then they worked it to the front of the net for Teddy Bluger. Yeah, I mean, he's a quiet guy, but he's a competitor, and it has to make him burn that to get to the second round and get to Game 7 of the second round last year. And these opportunities don't come around every year. And for the Canucks, the bargain contract that he is, you want to take advantage of these years, and it just sort of feels like this one is slipping away. And I know they're only 32 games in and there's 50 to go, but there are enough warning signs to me that everything went right last year. Obviously, everything hasn't gone right this time around. I don't know if Quinn would ever get to the point of verbalizing it, kind of like Henrik, like Bo Horvat followed him as well. But internally, yeah, I mean, he must be questioning what in the world is going on with this.
He must feel sewered.
Yeah, like when is management? You can talk about needing a defenseman all you want, but at some point, pitter patter, let's get at her here.
Guys, what does the world look like in Canuck land? And he's clearly the right choice for captain. But I think they were close-ish to naming Elias Pettersson the captain. What does the world look like? Does all this go down like this if Elias Pettersson is named captain instead of Quinn Hughes?
I mean, I think that would just further irritate JT.
You think it'd be worse?
I wonder if it's worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and I was on the Pettersson. I was on the Pettersson captain train for a while just because at the time, you'll remember, it sounded like Elias wasn't sold on the organization with all the crap he had been through, and so maybe that was a carrot to keep him.
Right.
I think they made the right call here, but we did months and months of people saying, well, where's Bo Horvat leading this group? They still don't play their own end. They still don't do this. They still don't do that. And, you do wonder when those same calls will surround Quinn Hughes. I mean, his only flaw right now is that he can't be peacemaker between Miller and Pettersson.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think with the way this is going, Jeff, and you say you think a big trade is coming, shake up the group, do you think that makes them more likely to put Lekkerimäki and Wielander in play here?
Oh, I mean, I guess I need to know the return. Like, as much as I like the idea of Tom Wielander, and Lord knows this organization needs help on both sides, but certainly on the right side. But if you were getting a right side defender in return that was a couple of years ahead, both in age and the development curve, then I guess I'd be like, if you could get a guy that either was under term or you knew you could get locked up long term, then I'd probably be willing to at least consider the idea of moving him.
Yeah,
now,
like the Philip Hronek case when they brought him over.
Yeah. I mean, to that degree. I guess just the more that we hear from management on those rare occasions, like Jim Rutherford on After Hours, it's pretty clear that this group is certainly taking its time, let's just put it that way, on any sort of Brock Besser extension. Yep. If they know that they're going to move off Brock Besser, then I think you want Lekkerimäki in your organization, don't you, as a stand-in to some degree. And I just kind of feel too, the more it goes here, the longer it goes as a struggle for Brock Besser. And I know Brock had a terrific playoff run last year, but what are the chances that this group, if they don't have him in the long-term plans, move off him? And I know people would say, hey, you're moving a 40-goal scorer, like you'd get this massive return. As a UFA, I don't know what the return ultimately would be on Brock Besser, but could you get some assets that you could then sink right back into the rental market if you felt that you could get a winger that felt, fit the profile of a little more of what you're looking for here? Again, I have all the time in the world for Brock Besser. He's been a terrific Canuck. Was really happy to see him have the season that he had last year, but he doesn't look anything like that player in the here and now. And my hunch is, and that's all it is a hunch, that they don't want to commit long-term to this player, whether it's the money or the term or a combination of both. And so I kind of get the sense that he is a guy that they would be shopping here in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I hear you. That doesn't solve the Pettersson Miller business. So have you given up hope that like we asked earlier in the week, do you think the Canucks can realize, cup contention with the way this is going on? Like,
Yeah, I mean, here
you
in the
think
last
that's still a
48 to
possibility?
72 hours, I'm going to say no, that it feels like it's holding them back now. And I came on with you earlier in the week, and I talked about the vibe that I was feeling. And, of course, people still want to hear that, and you can imagine the vitriol that I got in my feeds. And yet that noise has only ramped up in the 72 hours since then. And I think more people are coming on board. It was funny, guys. Earlier in the week, there was a clear dividing line, and there were two camps. There was Camp Petey and there was Camp Miller. Now it kind of feels like the fan base is all on the same side. These two guys have brought them all together, and everybody's against both of them right now. That's right. That, it just that's sort of the sense that I'm getting, that enough is enough here. If one of them was pulling away out on the ice and doing all kinds of things to help this hockey club, fine. But whatever is going on, it seems to be dragging them both down, and ultimately it's sinking this hockey club in the here and now. And, oh, by the way, as much as we've all said throughout, the record's incredible, give them credit for the record, they have 2 wins in their last 7 games.
Yeah.
They have 16 wins and 16 losses now, right? They've managed a few losses and got games to overtime, although one in Utah the other night never should have got to overtime. But they are a 16-win, 16-loss hockey club. And there are certainly extenuating circumstances with who's been here and available to them and all of that. But just don't lose sight of the fact that, 16 wins, 16 losses now. That's nothing to get all that fired up about.
Nope. And we've had a couple of spicy rink-wides here this week in Utah after the games against Utah and Vegas. They've got the league's hottest hockey team, winners of 5 in a row, coming in tomorrow with Travis Green behind the bench, his return with the Ottawa Senators, and, of course, Macklin Celebrini and the Sharks on Monday. So Jeff will be watching and listening rink-wide, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
Yeah, and look, I know the Canucks beat the Senators when Quinn got turfed early in the hockey game a month ago. This is a different Ottawa team. They have figured it out. They have the hottest goaltender in the National Hockey League in Linus Ullmark, who's given up nothing, 10 goals in his last 8 starts. And so you're right. They won 5 in a row coming in here. This is not going to be an easy game for a lot of the reasons that you laid out there. The one thing I will say is that the Senators finished their pre-Christmas portion. They're out of their building because of the World Juniors now, so they're doing that big, long road trip separated by Christmas. They have to go into Edmonton on Sunday, so it's back-to-back for them. Does Travis Green just throw everything he's got at the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday, try to get points, and then take your chances in Edmonton on Sunday? That, to me, is probably the approach here. I guess in an alternate world, you could save the best goalie right now for the Oilers and the challenge that that's going to present. But something tells me that Travis wants this win. He's been back as an assistant coach, but never as a head coach in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I think he throws his fastball at the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday night.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So Carson Price from the Historic Wall Center in Blake. One thing I don't miss about living back east is shoveling the driveway.
Yeah. Jeff Merrick's got
when
2
you had
kids.
to go and shovel the driveway, and my dad's line was, "Don't nobody buy me a snowblower. I have 2 healthy sons. They are my snowblowers."
Yeah.
And you have to put the toque on, and then you come back inside, and the hair is all disheveled. Hi, Jeff.
Look
par
at
for the
this.
course.
Look at this loaf I have on my head. So I've been bugging Emil Delich at Nation Network for an S&P hat now for 2 weeks, and I'm waiting.
Oh
for
boy,
it to
okay.
arrive, because I think it's the best look that we have. I'm like, that's a sick lid. I would be putting it on now because the feathers that I have going here. I mean, on a good day, I look like the Kraft peanut butter bear with my hair because it's just like poof, right? Like that's kind of my thing. But I apologize.
Who's the guy in the
watching this right now?
I've seen a lot of the sheet advertisements on the Nation Network feed. Who's the guy on the? Because he's so good looking.
He's perfectly coiffed.
Yeah.
The guy that doesn't have any wrinkles. The guy with the perfectly coiffed hair. The guy that knows how to do up a tie. Oh, yeah. Who's that guy?
I'll say this: I
Dragged a
joined his
razor
show.
across his face. Looked good. Yeah. What happened to that
I joined his show last week. He used a very bless him. He used a very dated airbrush. Thinned out.
Matt
headshot. Thank you for that. Listeners were asking, Matt, who is that guy? When is the last
Matt's
time
younger
that
brother
guy has been around?
Matt's younger brother, Steve Sekeres.
You have a PSA, a word of advice here to our listenership?
For
audience?
all of your listeners, for all of your entire audience, whether you're watching this, you're listening to this, do yourselves a favor, because every time that I mention it to someone, it's very rare that this one lands and people know what I'm talking about. But at the holiday season, this Christmas time, do yourself a favor and search out and play for yourself, your kids, the whole family. I'm going to see what reaction I get from you two guys. Maybe blank stares and maybe oh, wow, you're in the club too, Marek. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Say what?
Oh, really? That one didn't land for either of you guys?
No.
It's a Jim Henson. It is a hidden gem. It is a Jim Henson masterpiece from the late 70s. I'm not going to spoil any of it for you. The music is great. The puppets are awesome. Frank Oz is in it. It's very cool. Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Okay.
All right.
It's a show. All right.
No, it's.
Do you know where it is? Is it a children's book?
Movie. It's a children's book, but it is.
Yeah.
It was made into a Christmas TV special.
But do you know where you can get it?
Christmas movie. I'm pretty sure. I mean, you can order it online. I'm pretty sure probably YouTube will have the entire thing. Yeah, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
Okay. It's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. How about that? Nothing is ever 100% on Rotten.
I'm telling you, everybody that watches this falls in love with it, and the music from it you will hum for the rest of your life.
Oh,
I'm telling you, it is a hidden.
Good
it
tip.
is a hidden Christmas gem. It is a beautiful, one of Jim Henson's most beautiful works, and it's been completely hidden and sort of lost.
Muppet Christmas Carol is not too shabby either, by the way.
Love Me the Muppets. Yep.
Yeah.
Same vibe, but this one's got like the heartstrings Christmas thing along with it. You know what I'm getting at, Blake. You guys will love it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's on the list.
Okay.
As you may have heard, Elias Pettersson and JT Miller aren't the best of buddies, so we're asking on our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, what's more likely for the Canucks? A blockbuster trade, including one of them, Rick Tocchet getting fired, or peace on earth? Where are you voting? Where are you voting, Jeff? And we mean their earth, right?
Yes.
The dressing room. We don't mean peace on earth at large.
That's
no chance of that, but...
Matt, can I see that map again? Can I have a look at this place you call Earth? Can you be more Pacific, as we say in the Atlantic?
Yeah, Pacific is the right call there.
I've always been of the mind, and I'm going to give you a very specific example in a second. I've always been of the mind that you don't need to like someone to do business with them. We've talked about this before. There was Bob Gainey and Serge Savard. Like, there have been so many teams, like successful teams, that have had players that profoundly don't get along, and it's not exactly a secret. I mean, there has to be a sort of level of maturity and respect for it to work. But the history of hockey is I can't find one dressing room in the history of the sport where everybody got along. Like, there's various levels of it. Sometimes it's nasty. Sometimes you have to do something. Sometimes the general manager gets ushered into duty and needs to start picking up the phone and say, we got a problem here. There's only one way we're going to solve this. But I've always been of the mind it's always better, and especially in this situation with Pettersson and Miller, two players that are that don't have, for the two players that do something very distinctive on this team. I'm always of the mind that the best case scenario is you keep both of them. At whatever cost. Like, that's the moving one of them to me is the in case of emergency break glass moment for the Vancouver Canucks. Do you guys not feel the same way?
Or 100%, but are we not there?
Are
we not there? Because right now the brass tacks is it has got to the point now where I think this has become such a distraction. It has completely nullified the top six of the Vancouver Canucks. Like, the top six just isn't doing anything. It was zeros across the board last night, and if not for the depth, they'd be getting no goals at all right now. So it feels like situation critical right now, Jeff, which is just unfathomable given that this core has been together for years, that they can't figure this out.
So I wonder if the play here is then, I mean, first of all, you look at the ages and you look at the contracts, but I do wonder if at the end of all of it, if you're Rutherford and Patrick Albino going to be forced in the corner and, the gun to the head and you have to move one, I think you gauge the market and you say, okay, who can we get the most for? who can get us that defenseman that we need, who can get us another top 6 forward that we need. I think you probably go to market and say, like, look, these players are available. What can we get for them? And, you fish in the usual spots that everyone is sort of going to, whether it's Buffalo or whether it's New York, maybe Philadelphia as well. Anaheim always seems open for business. And you see, what the market will bear and what the market will offer you.
I have a bad short-term memory, but does the Rangers and Canucks scenario just seem ultra soapy for the NHL? Like, do we have this every year?
The Rangers Canucks scenario?
Well, just independently.
Just
both of them have their own soap operas going on here, and it just seems extra crazy this year.
You know what though? I think as what's interesting, Blake, as the years have gone on, like this kind of, I don't know where it exactly started, and maybe it's like the last 3 years. Does it not feel like the soap opera by the end of the season, so many teams are soap operas, but that's just, you go through 82 games and personalities and dynamics and wins and losses and road trips and arguments. Like by the end of the season, it's a long journey, and there's going to be soap operas. But the difference now is in the NHL, the soap operas start earlier. And I wonder if it's because the pressure to win starts in game 1, that, there's no idea now of sort of, just sort of sailing into the season, getting a feel. No, like you're expected to win like right away, and decisions are made quickly. Decisions are made on teams and decisions are made on players, which is why, what was that? I think the ad camp was one of the ad campaigns last year or 2 years ago from the NHL. No soap operas here. Are you kidding? It's all soap operas, but from a viewer's point of view, it's great. Like, lean into it. Look what the NBA has done, leaning into their soap operas.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? Like, if you have a situation, I know it's uncomfortable for the teams, and they don't like it, and they'd like to keep it all in-house and keep it in the room, and nothing gets out of these 4 walls, but it's great for the league. Like, I know I know that the Pettersson-Miller dynamic is really uncomfortable for everybody in that room, and the head coach and the general manager, et cetera, but from a league point of view, as far as like raising, this is a whole different sort of level of intrigue that now all of a sudden you want to see how this soap opera plays itself out. It's uncomfortable, but I mean, we dine out on it, fans dine out on it, everybody dines out on it, and ultimately I think it's a good thing for the league. And
good schadenfreude for the rest of the Western Conference, I think, too.
What would we call this Canucks opera? All My Children? Young and the Restless?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
As long as it's not General Hospital, because we've seen enough bracelets and enough injuries. Like, we don't need.
They have been more injured this year.
Yeah. So Miller has the full trade protection. Elise doesn't until July, and my sense is just Tocchet, Rutherford, Alvin are more Miller guys than Pettersson guys. So when you talk about getting the most at market, I think that's Pettersson, huh?
Well, I wonder how much of it is presented as, this is a team that's going to, this is a playoff team. Like, the Vancouver Canucks are a playoff team. Who are we going to do better with in the playoffs? Is it going to be JT Miller, or is it going to be Elias Pettersson? I wonder if how much of the conversation flat out just comes down to that. There's not that performance in the 82 games of the regular season is empty calorie, but we all know what happens when the puck gets heavier and everybody finishes their checks. Who are the guys that you want with you in that postseason? I still think that there's room for everybody. Like, I think that there's room for rugged players. I think there's room for soft skill players. Not everybody has to play the exact same style. Depends on who complements the soft skill type guys. But I think it is easier to look at JT Miller and say, that's a playoff guy. That's one of those guys you win with.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed Coach Tocchet seems to be getting more and more frustrated here? We are, Jeff. We are losing one of the great communicators in hockey before our eyes.
He's being
because
muzzled.
Up until this week, Rick Tocchet just wanted to sit back and regale on the sport of hockey, and we all got smarter listening to him because he's a really sharp guy, and he loved talking hockey. And this week it has been, 7 questions in a minute and a half,
and doing this
8-second answers.
He's literally doing this.
He went to the podium Saturday.
That's good, Blake.
He went to the podium Monday after a win and said, I'm going to be brief, and then just read through the game sheet of who he liked and then moved on. This was, of course, after last week and the Pettersson. Oh, you guys want to talk about
Petey. Oh, yeah.
I know. Yeah. I know. Uh-huh. Anyways, that's a sad offshoot here of the soap opera.
No, like, listen, I always expect coaches to be the most stressed of anybody in the organization, don't you? I mean, they get to the rink first, they leave the rink last. They're the ones that take it home. They don't get to say things like, I'm leaving it at the rink and then I'm having my regular life when I step out onto the street. Like, every game follows them. Every game lives with them. There's a game fog that travels with every coach. I honestly, you guys have friends that are
Jeff,
coaches too. Like, yes.
The losses hit harder than the wins are celebrated, right? That's the other.
You don't.
That is the other thing that keeps coaches captive, right? Like, they suck on the losses, they sit there, and it drives them crazy.
A win they just throw away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. See, I don't know why anyone would choose this life. Like, I get it that people are really competitive. Like, honestly, have you not had these conversations with a coach? Like, why have you chosen this? It's like all my, I'm not a golfer, like, for example. Like, I don't golf, I don't enjoy it. I always say, the best 2 balls I hit is when I step on a rake, because every time I go golfing, my friends who always tell me that it's relaxing, they're the most frustrated. I'm like, you don't really enjoy this. Like, they're angry and frustrated and just drink and just like, I'm like, you're not enjoying this. Why are you doing
It's self-flagellation is what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
And
then,
just
like,
beating yourself up.
Blake spends 4 hours cursing Blake out by name, third person reference.
Yeah.
Bill Parcells, the old football coach, likened coaching to heroin, that it's an addiction.
But it's also why some guys just say they're done and they want to move into management because they don't want the roller coaster, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like Barry Trotz, which is a great segue because I kind of like Alexander Carrier as a player.
Yeah, me too.
And I didn't mind his contract either. And I know he's not a Redwood, but I wonder if he could have helped the Vancouver Canucks on their right side as a puck mover. And that was they must really think that Justin Barron is going to turn out there in Nashville to make that deal, huh? What's your intel there?
There must be a champion who stood up for Justin Barron in that situation. I'm with you. I like Alexander Carrier. I was surprised. Like, I wasn't surprised at Dante Fabro. I wasn't surprised at Phil Tomasino. This one, even though we had heard his name out there for a while, I keep coming back to, like, they just signed him like in July. On the first day of free agency, like, here's a contract, and a very reasonable one as well. And that's one of the people that you're throwing off the side of the boat here. Now, we all know, you don't have to be a hardcore hockey observer to notice that the Nashville Predators have a problem down the middle. And by making this move, they're freeing up cap space probably to address that. Right? Like, this move doesn't exist in a vacuum. And that's why I wonder in this scenario if part of the motivation was we want to get back a young player that still has potential and a low cap hit because we need some cap flexibility. I do think that that's a big part of this one. The Carrier fit does look like it really, I got to say, like, Quinn Hughes. I know it's more the race to the first overall pick than anything else, but as far as trying to keep your team in games longer, so games not over the middle of the second period, like this is a really nice move. Logan Mayhew's probably, not ready for NHL duty, and Reinbacher's injured. So we don't expect either of those two to show up in Montreal until early next season at the earliest. So this one looks like a really smart move. I understand what you're saying about Vancouver, but I do wonder if part of the motivation is we want a young player at a really good cost that has what we believe to be some upside here. To your point, Matt, there must have been someone within that organization who said, we believe in this guy where teams before haven't.
Yeah, and I guess Höglander wasn't going to get it done for them.
Well, and financially too, right? Like we talked about last time with Höglander, like to be blunt, like one of the big ones is the contract.
No, I know, and like it looked like a very digestible contract, but when you go 26 games without a goal, then suddenly guys start worrying about being under term for 3 more years after this one.
When you sign someone after they shoot 1,000,000%, they're not always going to shoot 1,000,000%.
But Trotz told LeBrun he's not tearing things down, and he only has really Nyquist as a pure rental. He does have a bunch of guys who are expiring after next season. Do you believe him there, or do you think there are going to be available pieces in Nashville as the season goes along?
I do think that there will be, but I do very much think at the same time that he still wants to at least remain competitive and isn't like when you talk about rebuilds, there's a couple of different types of rebuilds. Like right now, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going through a rebuild. Right? We think of rebuild like trade all the veterans and nuts and bolts and strip it right down, but there's different kinds of rebuilds. Like right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins, if you're between the ages of 23 and 25 and you need a change of scenery, see Tomasino, see Glass, see Joseph from a couple of days ago as well, and you're in that we need a second chance era of your career, the Pittsburgh Penguins could be your home. And I think for the Nashville Predators, I think they're looking at this and they're saying, we're not going to tear it down. We want, not unlike Pittsburgh in some regards, we want younger, cheaper players here, but we're not going to strip this thing all the way down and try to rebuild it. Call it whatever you want.
Penguins are hanging around too. They're doing
Pens
okay.
are hanging in there. I'll hand it. You're right, Blake. Like Pens are hanging. Well, listen. It's a combination of the New York Rangers opened the door and the Pittsburgh Penguins said, "Oh, thank you for holding this, Mr. Drury. We'll walk in here now. Thank you very much." So I think it's a couple of things there with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but I don't think that Barry Trotz wants to take this thing all the way down. I think that there's a sensitivity about that marketplace and marketplaces like that, and we've seen marketplaces like that go through rebuilds. And you get a lot of costume parties at your games where everybody comes dressed as an empty seat, and that terrifies teams. And I don't think Nashville wants to go through that.
It's a long trade freeze right now during the Christmas holidays. You've been around Friedman enough, and you have your own sources. How much do you think they actually do business though over all the holiday freeze here, so that anything? In the first couple of days when it's reopened, are we going to see some trades here? Because we have not the blockbuster, but we have expected the Canucks to pull off some sort of defensive trade before the trade freeze. That didn't happen, but is it more likely to happen now in the first couple of days, now that you've got days to just kind of put your feet up and talk to the team? Or are they just busy being dads and being grandpas and doing the holiday thing?
For teams that need to fill spots, no. There's no like, okay, I'm turning my phone off. If that rings, just let it ring. I think that there are still conversations that go on. But I think like the nature of the conversations are like, swing back second week of January and we'll see where we're at, or swing back after this road trip and we'll see where we're at. Teams sort of block off the schedule in sort of chunks of 5 or 7 or 10 or wherever, see me after this segment and we'll cycle back to our conversations, because I would imagine that a lot of the conversations would revolve around if this, then that. Right? If this happens, we're prepared to do that. And we're prepared to do this thing with that player if this happens over the stretch of the next 5 games. But to think that managers aren't talking or texting through the holidays.
I mean, they're still on the road with their teams, right? Like, there's games happening. So they're still at work. Yeah.
There's no rest for coaches and no rest for managers.
And we're going to get more information on the Vancouver Canucks because they play the league's hottest team, the Ottawa Senators, winners of 5 in a row Saturday here at Rogers Arena. And then we see Macklin Celebrini and his glorious return to his hometown Monday with the San Jose Sharks.
I got in some hot water this week for having the nerve to suggest that perhaps Macklin Celebrini might just be a better player than Connor Bedard.
He is.
It's more well-rounded. There's more
certainly more well-rounded. I think Connor Bedard is a better natural goal scorer.
Yeah.
But for me, it's not close in terms of who I'd buy stock in.
Stamkos v. Crosby.
Because I think, wow. I think Macklin Celebrini is going to be your 200-foot number one center, leader, goal scorer. Like I think he's Jonathan Taves with more offense.
That's right. Yeah.
I think he's closer to Steve Yzerman. Meld Steve Yzerman, the young Stevie Y who scored all the goals, and the older one who did everything for those Red Wings. I think that's Macklin Celebrini.
This is like some high rent territory already, right? We're talking Crosby and Taves.
He's on a 40-goal pace, Jeff. He got hurt in his first game. He had a 2-point first period in his NHL debut. He got hurt. He missed 10 games. He came back like nothing happened.
And he's having fun. The no-look passes and shots.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder too how much of it. I got treated for a war criminal, but for suggesting that this week. It was an interesting week for yours truly. Like, all the Bedard stands came out. I mean, I get it, you cheer for your guy and all that, but like it's just fun watching San Jose right now. There's no pressure; they just go and play. Yeah, you know, even it's just and Celebrini's just having the best time. And I wonder about Bedard, and there was even just a little bit more expectation for Chicago this year. It's kind of wearing on him. Right?
It does.
And
he looks a little tired.
I don't want to say
wearing on him.
I don't want to like he's not sullen or anything but that it's wearing on him already. Okay, love the competitiveness, but oh boy, Connor, it's going to be a while yet. Whereas Macklin has an infectious personality. Like he walks into a room and he lights it up with his smile, with his sense of humor, with his charisma, gregariousness, like all of those things. So. Yeah.
Also,
I'm so looking forward.
Also, I don't like the Jonathan Taves.
Oh yeah, no, he's not Captain Serious. He's Captain Unserious, if you will.
Yeah,
and keep things like a little Joe Thornton in that regard. Actually, wonderful stuff, my friend.
Landlord Joe Thornton.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, going back into the Sharks room back in the day, and Blake and I were there many a times because of the playoff series. Like, it was the lightest, and all because of Joe. Right? Joe. Like, Joe just loved it when the media walked in and the show started.
And Jeff, I was in a sports bar in San Jose in August. August.
Yeah.
And I just settled down on the bar. The three guys to my left are all talking Sharks about Celebrini living with Thornton. Like, he could re-energize that market.
It's a wonderful hockey market, I think.
Do you know the story of Joe Thornton's first practice with the San Jose Sharks?
No,
pray tell.
So he comes from Boston, obviously. I mean, the media is huge. And he gets to San Jose, and after his first skate, he looks around and he says, "Where's the media?" And someone says, "He's over there." Remember Dave Pollock, of course, from the American?
Of course,
he's
David.
Where's the media? He's over there. How far we've come. He's over there.
That's awesome.
Hey, buddy, we'll be watching the sheet noon. Pacific time daily. Yeah. You have a marvelous holiday, Jeff Marek.
Thanks,
to you and yours. Enjoy the Otters Christmas, and we'll catch up.
Talk to you in 2025.
That's right.
Yeah. There it is. Emmett Otters Jug Band Christmas. Do yourself a favor, Matt. Do yourself a favor, Blake, and enjoy this Jim Henson class. How can you not love that? Look at that. You're watching us on YouTube. Look at that. It's beautiful. Thanks, boys. Have a great holiday.
Hey, buddy. If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Extend your game night with a staycation here at the Wall. Book your Harrison Price exclusive rate. Call 604-331-1000. Mention our names. Some blackout dates supply based on availability. Time to go to the people. Brought to you by Great Clips, where we hear from you on a variety of Vancouver Canucks topics. Blake, what they saying today?
There's not a variety of Vancouver Canucks topics, Matthew.
All right.
There is one topic.
There is one topic.
A few of our regulars weighing in. Tell me I'm wrong from Adam, the former Bath guy. Tell me I'm wrong. We're at a point with JT and EP40 that it's time to break out the plain aluminum Festivus pole and have them air out their grievances.
Yes, I like it.
That would work. Jay, the only way to fix Miller and Pettersson is to have them watch Step Brothers together. That would probably help. Mm-hmm. Did we just become best friends? Yep. Petey versus Miller is the new Linden versus Messier from North Shore Dan.
Mm-hmm. And how did that end?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Jason, weird room matches weird media. Vancouver is one of the worst for wanting to always find issues, and if the answers are not what the media likes, they keep harping on it. It's easy to see why so many players refuse to play in Canada now. Used to be a desired destination. Speaking of false narratives, players, very few, refuse to play in Canada. A similar amount refuse to play in Minnesota, refuse to play in blah, blah, blah. Canada's not a down market in the National Hockey League.
So there was a moment in Monday's game after Kiefer Sherwood scored his third goal where 18,000 people were chanting his name.
And he's
and
never
they
felt
panned
bigger.
to him on the bench, and he was smiling.
Jonathan Garland and JT Miller have both publicly talked about the tingles they've got playing in front of the Rogers Arena fans. And what did I say?
Jonathan. Who is
I said Jonathan Garland?
Who is Jonathan Garland? That's what I heard.
Very
Mike,
odd.
did you hear that? Yeah, Mike heard Jonathan Garland. Early start to East and O's, everyone.
John Garland was a pitcher, but I don't know where I got Jonathan Garland from. Connor Garland and JT Miller have glowed about this. So, no, completely false and honest to goodness.
I don't doubt there are some players that don't want to play in Canada, but
You guys, the coach has had to separate them on the ice. It is now affecting hockey operations, and you're still going to tell us that this is a false narrative.
Boudreaux said it was an issue. So you have the former
Boudreaux
coach
said, we had it when I arrived.
Yeah.
Like, what are you waiting for? Finally, on that note, hear me out. This is from Doran in Prince George, I think. Hear me out. Buffalo Sabres receive Elise Pettersson, Jonathan Lekramacky, and Niels Höglander.
Whoa.
Vancouver Canucks receive Tage Thompson, Henry Jokiharju, and a first-round pick.
Why are we moving Lekramacky in the first in there?
Right.
Just get rid of
Cancel those two.
Yeah.
Lowest common denominators, and then finally from Todd and Marpole, is it just me or is the Whitecaps sale indicative of an echo from the 1990s? The Canadian dollar hitting new lows against the U.S. dollar, the Whitecaps seeing revenues in Canadian dollars not keeping up with the U.S. costs, and two Canadian NHL clubs, an NBA team and an MLB team, flew south in the 90s with the Canadian dollar paying some or most of the reason in most of those cases. Todd and Marpole.
The Expos flew south in the odds, but nevertheless.
It was the ground was set.
Yes, indeed. Well, this player strike in 94.
With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada. Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand, official hair salon of the NHL. They're locally owned and operated, though, and open 7 days a week, and you never wait for your haircut with your Ready Next text. Go check it out. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Speaking of the Whitecaps, their schedule was released Thursday. Of course, no Messi game this year. 5 straight road games in the heart of the summer, just 3 home games in July and August.
To be fair, I cross-referenced that with this season, and this is actually more regular season. Well, sorry, it's the same as it was originally. Remember, they had to move a regular season game out of the summer. Right. So they actually only had 2 regular season games in the summer. This is scheduled for 3. So it's actually par for the course, but it certainly doesn't do the Whitecaps any favors.
Season opener February 23rd at Portland. Bring your Woolies. And the home opener March 2nd here at BC Place against the LA Galaxy. It's going to be interesting to see what attendance looks like because, of course, last year, if you wanted the Messi game, you had to buy others, and that helped fuel attendance. They were 7th in the league, and then, of course, the club being sold. We'll see if there's an effect there. I did see they shouted out to Ryan Reynolds yesterday. Order of Canada this week. Congrats, Van City Reynolds. We have an idea where you can put your powers for good. Pretty good. Whitecap social media. I don't think Ryan Reynolds alone has this kind of bread, but, maybe he can put together, who knows.
You'll see San Diego for the first time in June, and interesting, just competitively, a note, that Portland game that you talked about is actually in between leg 1 and leg 2 of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, 2-legged tie, so against Saprissa. And it's pretty tight. Like, it's the 20th, the 23rd, and then the 27th with the bookends there, the CONCACAF champions. So they get after it early, but it means that at least that second leg, they've already got 2 games under their belt. They're going to be in the swing of things a little bit.
CF Montreal visits, TFC does not, with this unbalanced schedule. I would like them to carve out that every Canadian team plays home and away.
Well, they have a
There's
rival.
a Canadian championship,
but there's a rivalry slot. Mm-hmm. Do you know who's in the rivalry slot this year for the Vancouver Whitecaps?
Seattle.
Austin.
Huh?
Yep.
Super draft goes today, so the Caps will be adding players. They've done okay in the super draft in the past, but probably not going to find a frontline player here
overall.
when you're picking 15th overall, middle of the first round. And how about this from Netflix? They have secured the U.S. rights to the FIFA Women's World Cup 2027 and 2031, and they are also going to do docu-series leading up to both tournaments. This is another indication, everybody, that Netflix is going all in on sports. They also released plans to unveil a couple new NFL documentaries. America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, about Jerry Jones et al., and Elway on former Broncos quarterback and team president
And Matt,
John Elway.
I can't help but go to Stephen Brunt's chat with Keith Pelly on the future and recent history of Rogers and TSN. Cross-reference that with the reports of TSN being up for sale. It's anything but hunky-dory for Sportsnet and TSN these days. And then you see Netflix and Amazon jumping in.
Yep.
Like, are we just going to be watching sports on Netflix and Amazon going forward?
I think there could very well be that world. The BC Lions re-signed defensive back Jordan Perryman. He played in 10 games last year. I think he is going to be a fixture in that secondary for new defensive coordinator Mike Benavides. And they also signed slot back Braden Lennius from Carson Graham in the North Shore. Forgive him that, Blake. He played at UW, was a Saskatchewan draft pick, 6'5", 230. Now, he missed all of last season with a fractured foot. After he came back, he broke 3 screws in that foot. It required a second procedure, Farhan Lalji reports. Some are drawing parallels to Justin McInnes, who also had one decent season in Saskatchewan as a good young Canadian receiver with some pedigree. Of course, the Lions brought him over, and he flourished into the CFL's leading receiver last year. So people are wondering, is this insurance for McInnes, who's a free agent, or could they start 3 Canadian wide receivers? Lanius is almost tight end size. He's looked at as a tight end in American football. And Lower Mainlander Jalen Philpott re-signs in Calgary, so that takes one of the good Canadian receivers off the free agent board when that gets going in February. NFL playoff scenarios here for Week 16. And look, Seattle hosts Minnesota, as we all know. They cannot clinch a playoff spot this week. That Philadelphia-Washington game is big for the 12s. Philadelphia can clinch the NFC East with a victory, whereas Washington can actually clinch a playoff berth this weekend. There are 4 scenarios. The 2 easiest is they win, Atlanta loses, and the Rams lose, or Seattle loses. So Seattle can basically wave goodbye to any designs on a wild card spot this weekend if they lose and Washington happens to upset Philadelphia. You're rooting for the Eagles there. And Green Bay also has clinching scenarios this week. The easiest is just win. Packers win, they're in. They also get in with the same combination of losses that Washington needs. Atlanta loss and a Rams loss, that puts the Packers in. An Atlanta loss and a Seahawks loss puts the Packers in.
I know periodically 10-win teams, even in a 16-game season, miss the playoffs, but it's still odd. You go 10-7 sounds like a playoff caliber season. And if you're telling me the Seahawks lose, they could still go 10-7
and miss.
They would probably win the division at that point.
I was going to say, do they win the division at that point?
They probably win the division.
But of course, the Rams already have the one win. So if I'm not mistaken, it's divisional record, conference record, and then common opponents if we're looking at a all things square each team.
Yeah.
So they could come down to a tiebreaker there. And then the Chargers beat the Broncos last night. They get in if Indianapolis and Miami lose this week. And they're like a 97, 98% chance now to get in. Mm-hmm. Denver needs a win next week. Poll question results. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Thursday. We asked you, can the Canucks overcome the Pettersson Miller drama and contend for the Cup this spring? Yes or no? What did the people say?
People said yes.
They said no.
Oh,
59%. Sanddragon, they're done. There shouldn't be much. There shouldn't be much discussion about bolstering the back end when they can't resolve internal issues. Otherwise, they're just making a trade for the sake of doing so. Aaron, I bloody well hope so. These guys are professionals. If they can't cut the ego shit, get them both off the team. Yeah. Barb, they might overcome the drama, but contend for the Cup? Will they actually make the playoffs is what I'm worried about. Not too far off, Barb. Adam, no, I think we missed the playoffs unless something is done about the drama. Hockey first. Says, doesn't appear that Miller's behavior is moving anything forward. The leave of absence looks like a holiday at this point. Again, there's a lot that we may not know about the Miller leave of absence. And then Hockey Rules 1, if they don't start producing on the ice, it doesn't matter how they treat each other off of it.
And totally true. But as we talked about, is one contaminating the other? I don't think they're unrelated is the thing. So
errors and omissions, we've got a couple of them here. Vamelka, the J is silent
yes,
in the
makes sense.
Goaltender's name. Yeah. And then we have a listener chime in on reindeer. And this listener knew a thing or two about reindeer. And when, guys, you're asking, which Canucks are which reindeer, he goes, all the reindeer are female.
It's the wintertime. They've got their antlers. Females don't lose their antlers in the wintertime. Men do.
Yeah. How bizarre, huh? They both have antlers. They both shed antlers. But the females keep the antlers through the winter. The males have the antlers later in the year or earlier in the year.
You ever seen them shed the antlers? They do this convulsing thing where they literally shake and convulse.
Really?
And it just rips off their head.
Really?
Yeah. Or it gets caught as they're running through the forest and
snaps off.
It snaps off, generally.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with us. We will have a show on Monday. This guy's away, but we will have a show on Monday. So please look for that at the usual times. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Merry Christmas, Blake.
Yeah, you too.
And keep it local.